Okay, so obviously our focus here was to show off as much of the products as possible. Again, we're doing top-down integration, so we're looking at and a lot of all the things you saw today came from customers that said, I want to run Hortonworks, and here's how I want to be able to look at this. I want to think about it as a Hortonworks administrator would think about it, not as a networking necessarily bottoms-up type of view. So. We're leveraging a lot of the capabilities that we have in the network to be able to, again, leverage those resources, move them around, do all kinds of stuff. And the control layer gives us that middle point where we can basically ask it, hey, I need this, can you go do that? And it will go and figure out if it can compute that topology, support that SLA, whatever, and return back an answer to the integration layer. So hopefully that came through. And again, our goal is we have automated configurations that are completely behind the scenes. We have this notion of interactive automation. So I'm in a Slack channel and I want to go tell the network but I'm telling it to go do something, kick off a series of actions, maybe approve them, reject them, whatever, and then proceed in that manner. And over our strategy over the next year or two is to really increase the level of visualization that we're providing to the user directly from our tools and the visualizations that we're exporting into the other tools that users are using.
So I hope we've answered the questions you had, but more importantly, I hope that you saw the connection of the thought of what's happening in this third platform, right? And the requirements on the infrastructure from the top, from the applications. And, sometimes we think of ourselves as an application-defined network. We use lots of words for this because we don't really know how to describe what we do and how we do it. But at the end of the day, the infrastructure needs to be dynamic and responsive to the applications, because what we need to do is we need to create private clouds that have the flexibility and agility of the public alternatives. And so this approach of approaching the network from the application abstraction and then feeding that into our controller and then having a very agile physical layer is what's manifested and what's unique about Plexxi. Right? Every other approach in the marketplace uses a 20-year-old network architecture that is, I would call it a wire-defined network, a network defined by its wires. So I hope that came across loud and clear. And so this basic idea that you need to be able to shape the infrastructure around the application should have come out in the demonstrations. Do you have other questions around or any of these concepts? I could talk a little bit about some specific customers. So this last demonstration that Kevin just did was actually for a specific customer. I was actually just exchanging email with them this morning. And it's a large financial institution, a large insurance company. And they came and visited, and they saw actually an earlier version of that. And we hope to be doing a trial with them here shortly to be their big data fabric. So that was done for a specific customer. If you saw the earlier, I'm sure you saw the VMware integration demo. Okay, a large government agency has deployed that integration at tremendous scale, 40,000 VMs. 2 weeks ago, they turned up 5,000 desktops, and last week they turned up another 5,000 desktops on that infrastructure. So this is not theory. This is now practice. So when I talk to customers, I give them kind of two extreme points. I know we talked a little bit about Perseus and that deployment.
Perseus is the worldwide service provider that I was describing. So, I have to say their name.
So here you have Plexxi's, software integrations, controller, and hardware deployed in, a network that's over 100,000 route miles. And on the other side, you have our VMware integration deployed in, an environment that's, thousands of servers and, tens of thousands of VMs, right? So this is not theory anymore, right? I think that we've done ourselves somewhat of a disservice, which we've gotten everyone's so focused on SDN as the word, as the moniker, and it's been somewhat whitewashed in terms of the definition. I just really see SDN as a capability of any really capable network for the future. Every network should be definable by software, right? Then the only question is the underlay under that network capable of creating agility and flexibility to be shaped around your applications and data? And Google would tell you that it has to be photonic based. And so if you look at the work that Intel and others are doing with silicon photonics, the future of networking is clearly photonic. I could give you books and tons of papers on, the future of networking. And if you just look at the power consumption, if you look at the distance, if you look at the speeds, it's all at some point going to be, these big photonic meshes. So Plexxi is the first to bring that to the enterprise in a massive way.
What would you say to companies who are starting to look at white box switching, and they maybe have been used to very much Juniper, Cisco, and this kind of thing, and they're seeing the future as a Linux-run switches? They don't want to jump.
We love that.
Well, they don't want to jump from a Juniper Cisco to another vendor that's doing hardware. They want to buy white box hardware. I can see your software being an amazing control for them. They maybe don't need the photonics kind of thing.
Right.
How do you navigate that?
Maybe we need to make that clear. So our software runs on white boxes or our purpose-built hardware. All we do with the white boxes is we use several uplinks to emulate the photonic mesh. It runs on white boxes today. In fact, most of our volume is shipped on white boxes running this exact same software.
Yeah, so the key is, if you go to a white box approach, right, what are your choices from a control perspective? You could set it up as a standard leaf and spine running ECMP, which gives you no control over how the traffic is distributed, right? So you have no application layer control over traffic distribution, all the things that we showed today. So that's one way to do it, and certainly, people deploy large-scale networks using that approach today. But generally, what they're doing is large-scale cloud providers are also figuring out ways to build in a dynamic mesh in the middle of that, right, using some integration of optics, right, or photonics. What we do with white boxes, we take them, instead of making you configure them as a leaf spine, which you certainly could do if you don't want that level of control, we wire them together in the same mesh pattern. Let
me give you a business answer to that.
Yep.
Right? So here's the business answer to that. We love white boxes. White boxes running traditional networking stacks achieve a lower CapEx because you've disaggregated and reduced your port cost. We do that. We actually even architecturally reduce your port cost because of our architecture. But more importantly, if you run our software on those white boxes, you have the same CapEx as anybody else in the white box world, but all the flexibility of control-based architecture that can scale, reducing your operating expense. So we attack both problems, and we love white boxes. All right, and we're going to do more and more white boxes. But let's be clear, that's a reduce your port cost play. And if you don't attack the OpEx, most of the expense and all these, anybody at scale is operating expense, it's not capital expense. So everybody that just disaggregated switches, all they did was attack their CapEx, which is an interesting problem, but the moment Cisco embraced white boxes and Arista embraced white boxes, that difference went away. So that's a port cost game. We have an architectural statement, which is 90% of these ports go away in our architecture, or the red dot. It's an architectural statement, and then you get all the benefits from having our controller-based architecture on it, and then you go all the way up our integration stack, and since we're based on this, we have the agility to implement all the capability that the software wants us to do. That's a great question. Sometimes that point doesn't come out. You know why? Because everybody thinks this stuff is so cool. We get tunneled in on it. We spend a lot of time talking about it. But we're just geeks. In reality, most of our volume's in white boxes. And a lot of our new designs are actually a hybrid. These switches with built-in CWDM optics and a mixture of white boxes without the CWDM built in. One design is every 6 switch is a Plexxi CWDM switch, and then we use the TORs to wire up to it.
And I suppose there's also nothing stopping anybody even integrating your solution with a Cisco and a Juniper network from the automation point of view, that you can have half your environment on your thing, create some VLANs. Okay, it's clunky CLI kind of scripting, but there's no reason it's not possible.
That's right.
No reason it's not possible, correct. There's no greenfield network in the world. Somehow networks connect to things, right? It's just like what they do.